everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are really excited today to be here for another one of our Thanksgiving recaps that we're doing. And this is such a busy week for us at the Hallmarkies podcast. Woo! But there's a lot of fun films to talk about. And we are here to talk about two of this weekend's or week's films. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and I have with me today as my guest co-host, I have Joe from Guy at the Movies YouTube channel. And thank you so much, Joe, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about these two films.
Yeah, so you're new to most of our audience, I think. And so why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your your experience with Christmas movies, what are some of your favorites?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question when it comes to favorites. I've been thinking about that a lot recently because I tend to watch the same ones every year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Joe from Guy at the Movies, mainly on Twitter and the guyatthemovies.com website. I'm sorry, Instagram and the guyatthemovies.com website, and focus on daily movie reviews as well as movie news and really the latest trailers. So just always excited to try to expose people to films that maybe they wouldn't have seen otherwise. But in terms of Christmas films, I was excited to watch these. Of course, identifying as a member of the LGBT community, we'll get into this, but The Christmas House was a very exciting step forward for Hallmark. But when it comes to Christmas films in general, the one that I always go back to, and it's because I read the book when I was younger, which was called Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. But Christmas with the Cranks is the title of the film. I love that movie. I know it gets a bad rap, but I just have so much fun with it.
Yeah. Well, I just always just like, let them go on vacation. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah, they just want to take a break.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I know what you mean though about introducing people to films. I think that is definitely that's the most satisfying part of the whole experience, when you find something that you really love and getting people to check it out, give it a chance. And even with some of these Christmas movies, like I've had ones that I've really kind of championed that I really love, like Christmas Pen Pals or Christmas Perfection. Those were two that I think I got a lot of people to watch those movies, and for the most part, people really enjoyed them, like I did, and so that feels good when you can champion a film that you really love.
Well, we were just talking about one a little bit on Twitter the other day, Spontaneous being one that wasn't really or hasn't been getting much attention, but it's a very good movie.
It's so weird because it has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. So pretty much everybody who sees it likes it, but nobody's talking about it. What's your experience with kind of Hallmark or Lifetime type of TV movies? Is something you've watched before, or is this kind of you're new to the genre?
Yeah, I've been inconsistent with them. I think Lifetime is one that I probably gravitate towards more for the true crime aspect and such when they go that route. Yeah, the thrillers. But with Hallmark, it's always kind of refreshing, and I was reminded of this watching these two films, that it always brings you back to just even the worst thing that happens in the movie is a positive part of the movie in a way. Like it's used positively. You still feel good about the movie. And I kind of like that. I need that every once in a while to have that positivity and that feel good sensation that you don't get all the time.
Yeah, we call the Lifetime thrillers, we call them the cautionary tales.
Yes.
The Hallmark is the fantasy. And they're the kind of movies that Hollywood used to make all the time, but they hardly make it all anymore. You rarely get a sweet rom-com. And if they do make a rom-com, a lot of times it's really vulgar and just not for this audience. And Hallmark is just so brilliant in the way they figured that out, and they monopolized off of it.
100%. They cornered that market very well.
All right. Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about The Christmas House. This aired on the 22nd, so it's last Sunday, and on Hallmark Channel. And this stars Robert Buckley and Brad Harder and his baby, which is so cute. That was his baby at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anna Iora, Jonathan Bennett, Sharon Lawrence, Treat Williams. So incredible cast. And the little summary on Hallmark Channel is when TV star Mike Mitchell's parents ask him to bring back a revered family tradition, he revisits the Mitchell family magic of Christmases past. So that's not the best description of this movie, but nevertheless. So let's talk about some of the reasons why this was an important film, as you mentioned. So in here we have, because really this movie was more about the family than it was about the romance, I think. And you have in here Jonathan Bennett and Brad Harder, who are Jonathan is the brother of Robert Buckley's character, and he is married to Brad Harder's character, and they are waiting to find out if they can adopt a baby. And so yeah, this was really new for Hallmark, and you can definitely say that it was too late. I get that, but nevertheless, it's pretty, for especially for such a conservative audience to be presented with this in the story is I think a really important thing. And I thought I was very excited about it. I think it's great. And yeah, how did you feel about the fact that they were including this?
So when I first heard about it, I was very excited, but really
Mm-hmm.
anxious to see how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, burned a few times by films that say we're going to feature the first
Right.
LGBT character, and then it's a passing shot in the background or a random comment. I say this about Disney all the time. Disney oftentimes will say, "Look at the character we have," and then it's a blink and you miss it
The
type
gay
of
moment
experience.
in Beauty and the Beast.
The gay moment in Beauty and the Beast, the LGBT character in Onward,
Right.
it
Yeah.
drives me crazy. But my the biggest positive of this film for me in terms of how they handled introducing the first same-sex couple was that it wasn't all about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the typical story you would get where, I really expected Jonathan Bennett's character to be bringing a boyfriend home for, the holidays or something. And then he has to tiptoe around family and figure
Oh
out how to
yeah.
tell them. And
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the case here. They kind of started midway through the story, so to speak. And he's married and they're trying to adopt a child. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love that.
Yeah, that's a good point, that it wasn't about a coming out story, that it was about, if they were hiding it, it was only to kind of protect them emotionally, as far as, because
Mhm.
adoptions so often don't go through, which is
Mhm.
something that any couple can probably relate to, whether you're LGBTQ or not. And
Exactly.
so yeah, I agree, that was really good. They had in August, they had a lesbian wedding in one of the movies, but that was way less a part of the plot. I mean, it was probably about 3 minutes total that they were shown.
Okay.
And I've heard some people say, oh, it was just a C relationship, it wasn't the main relationship. And I get it, but I feel like it was a pretty equal. I mean, it's in this particular film was really about the family. And so I
Mhm.
don't think that they got that much less of an emphasis then. I mean, a little bit, but not a lot, than the Robert Buckley and Anna Igora couple. That I felt like, the Treat Williams Sharon Lawrence relationship got a certain amount of time. Jonathan Bennett and Brad Harder got a certain amount of time, and then a little bit more for Robert Buckley and Anna. And I don't know, did you agree? Would you agree, or do you think it was still too little?
I agree with you. I don't think it was too little.
Mhm.
It definitely was the secondary relationship. I would say I would put it on par with
Mhm.
the parents in this film. But I think you're exactly right there. The main focus of the film, or the main romanticism, is around the two lead characters in I almost said Mike Mitchell, in Robert Buckley
Yeah.
and Ana Iora, right? The will they, won't they, rekindling, that
Mhm.
type of thing. But they didn't diminish the other relationships at all. And you're exactly right. It all played into the dynamic of the family. And that's really what I think this was about. And what if you watch the movie, The Christmas House is about.
Yeah. I mean, and I can certainly relate a little bit to this in that because I have a sister that's gay,
Okay.
and so we haven't had a family Christmas together yet with everybody because she's living over in England right now with her partner. But just sort of the dynamics of the family and the relationships and whether it's a gay relationship or a heterosexual relationship, it's just always is kind of a new kind of adventure the for the family. You got a new person to uh to bring into the fold and make
Right.
all work, and it can be interesting. And so overall, I should say, overall, what was your overall feeling about this movie?
I actually really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I went in thinking, let's see what happens here. It
Mm-hmm.
might be cheesy. It might not be something that I'd want to rewatch, but I actually did really enjoy what they did with this. There are a
Mm-hmm.
few points where I laughed out loud because of the direction that the film took. So the introduction of magic in the film,
Mm-hmm.
or that as a plot point, kind of made me giggle a little bit. But then my real job, my daytime job, is I'm an attorney. So the
Mm.
fact that he was an actor in a show called Handsome
Yeah,
Justice,
we're gonna talk about that.
I will
Oh.
tell you, the first 3 minutes or whatnot, where it's a scene of Handsome Justice, I was like, this better not be a real courtroom scene, because it is completely out there with
Yeah.
the decorations, the will in the evidence, case closed, we're done, like that type of thing. But
Yeah. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it too. It's fun because this was based on Robert Buckley's actual family that did this Christmas house, I guess.
right,
And so he created the story, and then it was executed by Aaron Rodman, the writer. But he was very involved. He was, I think, a producer on the film. We actually got to talk with him, and that was really fun. And so there was, I think, a little bit more sort of passion in this film than maybe some others, that where this is literally about his family.
yeah.
And I think you could feel that going in. And yeah, Handsome Justice was so hilarious. I absolutely loved it.
I think the crazy part is, I could see that show happening. I could see something like that happening.
Uh, yeah, I the all the Christmas decor was so funny in Handsome Justice. And yeah, I mean, especially it was fun of Robert kind of poking fun at how incredibly handsome he is. And I mean, he's definitely one of the most handsome people I've ever interviewed. That's for sure. And we talked to him about Lipstick Jungle, which was such a sexy show and fun show. And so he has those. He wasn't a lawyer; he was a photographer in that show, but nevertheless, those kind of sexy shows with Handsome Justice, and it was so funny. I was just
It,
like,
and even playing on that, one of the subplot points, very minor, is the recording of a commercial for like a deodorant,
oh
and even that
yeah,
was hilarious. Like they played it just enough,
yeah.
just enough to make it funny.
Yeah, it was really good. And sometimes these movies, especially on the Movies and Mysteries channel, they can take themselves a little too seriously. You're just like, calm down. It's just a Christmas movie. So that kind of started everything off on a really fun note, I thought.
I agree with you
It made
there.
me laugh. And I just loved Tree Williams and Sharon Lawrence as the parents in this movie. I thought they were
Mhm.
so good. I'm not that familiar with Sharon Lawrence, I have to say, and she really impressed me. Every time that she cried or she started to get kind of emotional because of what is happening in her marriage, I bought it. I really did.
What
She did a good job.
100%. And I think that's one thing that I enjoyed about this the most is a lot of, not a lot of times, but sometimes with made for TV films, you can um, see that there's some actors that are really phoning it in or maybe just, there for a paycheck. I thought everyone was great in this film. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed everyone's performance, and everyone kind of brought an authenticity to the role they were supposed to play and did it well.
Yeah, she was really good. So her and Treat Williams, and he's always good. I love him
Yeah.
in there's a Hallmark Christmas movie called Rocky Mountain Christmas,
Okay.
and I really enjoy it probably more than most. It's got its flaws, but and he plays the dad character in that one as well, and he has a great scene where he sits down with Christopher Paloha, who's one of my favorites, and he sits down and talks to him about how he keeps the ticket that in his wallet that he was going to use. He was going to leave, but he decided, and no, I'm going to stay and get married and be with my wife and everything like that. And so he keeps it in his wallet to remember that moment when he made the decision that changed
Oh, wow.
everything. I love that. I think that's so good, and I think he's really good at that, like selling the emotion
Hmm.
and making, and you just feel like a chemistry between him and it seems like whoever he's working with. Very, like, he's also on Chesapeake Shores, which is a show I don't care for, but to be frank, but he's good in it.
Yeah.
Just the writing is not my favorite. So I I think he's great as a patriarch. He's really good.
I was first introduced to him, and I'm going to forget what character he played, but he was in the show Brothers and Sisters on ABC back in the
Oh
day.
yeah, yeah.
And he was a minor character and probably not on it long, but that's where I first remember seeing him. And I loved that show because it's pretty much the opposite of what we just watched with the Christmas House, in that it
Hmm.
is every moment of this family is dramatic and crazy.
Hmm.
And I think I identified with that because that can be said about my family.
Yeah.
But he is that solid, lean on him actor to deliver that type of performance in a film or a TV show.
Yeah, and I think that the whole thing with them being separated, I had somebody kind of say, like, it's a Hallmark movie. Of course they're going to get back together, but I don't know. There was something about it that I don't know, it was just because they were taking risks in other ways. So maybe I thought, oh, are they going to take a risk in this way? And really, there was something about it that I actually got kind of drawn in, and I felt
Hmm.
like, are they really going to separate? Like, I felt like it might have happened, and I I thought I thought the writing did a really good job of making it clear that both people were kind of talking over each other and not really listening very well to each other. And I mean, they have a limited amount of time here, but I thought they did the best they could in showing that there were major problems here. And it was kind of like, I'm getting kind of upset. Like, I'm getting stressed watching this. No, because oh, I
Well, and
understand that some people need to get divorced, and I get that, but it's
right.
so sad.
Yeah. And they kind of made you think for the longest time, like, is there something bigger here?
Hmm.
They, not to get deep into it, but they talked about, things that the husband was doing, that Treat Williams' character was doing. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what is he doing? Where is he going? What is he doing?
Yeah. Like, why is he going all this yoga and stuff like
Yeah.
that? I agree. I thought that too. And they make it, make nice at the end,
Mhm.
but I was invested. I really was.
Yeah. I will say the one piece of the ending that I completely saw coming, probably from 5 minutes in, was the sale of the house to who ends up buying it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Hmm.
all right.
Yeah, yeah, that I agree with that. Um, but yeah, so you have this relationship with Anna Iora and her son,
Mhm.
and Honestly, I could have done without this whole relationship. That was the weakness for me. I felt like I didn't think that they had that great a chemistry. It was fine. It was serviceable. I didn't hate it, but I thought everything else was way better. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I could have done without the relationship part of this movie, to be honest.
I'd agree with the chemistry. I think the performances were really good, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
with you in that I don't know that I really bought Anna in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not. I don't know. I do like that they focused on bringing the child into it and really helping Robert Buckley's character see kind of this different life that he can have and the role that he could play. At one point you end up getting a little bit of backstory about the his realization of the things that his father did to help him along the way and help him learn certain things like magic.
Yeah,
And
and
I thought
she was
that
new to me. I guess she's in Captain Marvel, but I don't remember her. But yeah, she was new to me as an actress, and yeah, I mean, it was good that I liked that they kind of leaned into her Latino, Latinx, however they say it, background. And then, you had the tamale making scene, which seems to be like in these Christmas movies, that's the big like nod to representation is we're gonna make tamales instead of like, okay, I love tamales, they're delicious, so that's fine with me. But yeah, she was more of like a conduit for her son to be in the movie. I
yeah,
feel like almost more than
that's a
she
good way
was
to
in the
look at it.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her son is interested in magic, and uh, the Robert Buckley's character did magic as part of the Christmas house growing up, and so he starts kind of teaching him how to. This was Noah, little Noah, teaching him how to do magic. What did you think of the flashbacks that they showed? Did you think that those teens looked anything like them? What did you think of that?
Robert Buckley's flashback character did not look like him whatsoever in my eyes.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I was really paying too much attention to it. It was a nice touch, and they didn't overuse it. It was really sparsely used. I think we saw more of Robert Buckley and Anna's background than anyone else.
Yeah, and I was just glad that they didn't have them try to pretend that they're teenagers, because that has happened. That is a thing that I've seen before in Hallmark movies. And so I was like, oh, good. They cast young people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They didn't try to de-age them.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes they'll like, I don't know, just ridiculous, have them have like long hair and whatever they see as sort of rebellious looking or something like that, they'll put them in these outfits, and you're just like, you're
No,
not pulling off a
no.
teenager. I'm sorry. um, and yeah, and then all the magic. I mean, it's fun because you have Christmas magic, so magic fits in
Yeah.
really well. I mean, it was kind of fun that you have kind of funny. They decide to name the character Mike. And you have Magic Mike, Magic Mitchell,
Majestic Mike was the
Majestic Mike, and you're just thinking. I mean, would they go with Mike? I mean,
I was
because
wondering
Magic
if that
Mike
was a
is a whole
little
franchise here, right?
yeah. I was wondering if that was like a little wink wink to the handsome aspect of Robert Buckley and because that was
Oh,
pretty funny. I caught that as well.
I know. That was funny. But it was cute. And so they all get there and they're working on the house. It made me laugh when they have the line about the uniform garland fluffage,
Yeah. Yep.
because I can guarantee you the props department at Hallmark, they are very concerned about uniform garland fluffage. I always right around like mid-December, right around mid-December every year, I kind of reach my garland threshold and it starts to drive me crazy, because in these movies they have garland in places that are unreasonable. Like nobody has garland on top of the range hood of the kitchen. Nobody
Right.
has garland on top of the fridge. Like, what?
Well, and for
Sometimes they
this
have them, you can't even open the cabinets. I'm like, what are you doing?
For the purposes of this film, I feel like they just emptied out like their entire,
Yeah.
props department of Christmas items.
At least this one is kind of supposed to be over the top. Where it gets me
Right.
is especially sometimes they'll have people who are like not even into Christmas, and yet every single piece of molding in their house is covered with garland. I'm like, what? Do you think that you would want to go to see the Christmas house?
I would definitely check it out
Yeah.
because I just have these memories of growing up. We would go to my grandmother's for Christmas Eve, and where she lived in Northeast Philadelphia, it was always, driving into the development, you just saw lights everywhere. Every
Yeah.
house went over the top and really did it.
Hmm.
So it's just, there's something that is kind of nice about that. It
Yeah.
reminds me of my childhood, and I can totally buy that this would be something that this family would do.
Yeah, and I think that lights are going to be a big deal this year because it's so socially distance accessible. I think that people are, I mean, I hope so at least. People are going to go all out on lights because it feels like the best way to celebrate Christmas in 2020 is through Christmas
True.
lights. And
Well,
yeah.
and we're already, I mean, I don't know about where you are, but around here, there's trees up in pretty much most houses. People are already decorating. I think everyone just wants
Mhm.
that sense of, it's a transitionary time too, right? When you have decorations, you're coming to the end of the year. So maybe it's wishful thinking that it's going to mark the end of all this chaos. But
I know. I have my tree up already because my parents have a second house that they spend a lot of time at, and so I mean I wanted to get it up anyway, but then I wanted when my dad was here and available, I was like, oh, let's get it done.
yeah,
Let's
let's
have
do
it
it
up.
now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that it would be fun. It kind of reminds me, oddly enough, of there was one house in our neighborhood growing up that had an old tree with like hardly any leaves, but lots of branches,
Okay.
and so they would do this thing, this pumpkin tree every Halloween, and what we'd do is we'd carve the pumpkins on the side instead of on the top, and then we'd hang them from the tree, and it'd be this pumpkin tree, and there was like a whole sort of mini little festival, I guess you could say, kind of around it, where they'd have bobbing for apples and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and that was sort of I feel like sort of a similar experience of sort of just the small little sort of neighborhood kind of tradition. And I remember I was actually even on the news when they covered the pumpkin tree one year. I think we still have it somewhere on some old VHS of me of saying, I can't remember what I said, but that it was, so fun or whatever. And
That's
so those
great.
kind of community neighborhood, I feel like they're less common now than they maybe used to be. But when those sort of traditions can start up, it's really special.
Yeah, that's great. It's
Mhm.
and it's right now, I think when you're watching films like this, it's all about the reminders
I
to
know.
the, things that we enjoy growing up, and trying to connect with us somehow in that way. And I think this film did a really good job of that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm feeling this season because I both find the escapism appealing, but I also found it kind of bittersweet. So it's
Mhm.
been because I miss going to the arts and other things like that. And so it's been, an interesting experience for me as a
Yeah.
viewer for that. And so then they have Brandon and Jake that are trying to adopt, and we have a kiss in front of the house. And I thought that was done really well, really sweet. And so I didn't feel like the movie was dodging their relationship or treating
Mm-mm.
them any differently than if it was a heterosexual relationship in the same parts. I don't know. How did you feel about that?
Well, and quite the opposite here, actually, in terms of dodging it. I think this very easily could have been just a quick kiss, and it was a passionate kiss.
Yeah, it was.
Um, Not to really like hone in on that, but it's something that I think was kind of impressive with this film. It didn't dodge it at all. They had a passionate moment, they showed it, and moved on.
Yeah, I agree. It was good, and I felt like they had good chemistry. I'd
I
see a
agree.
whole movie about about them because I just at the end when you see them with the baby a year later, I'm like he should not be in the Christmas house. That baby is going to like this a landmine, a nightmare for a baby in that house. There's so many things for them to pick up
Well, when the
and
mother even said, we need to baby proof our new house," I was like, "You need to baby proof this one."
yeah, that's right. And I, I was just kind of talking about that with actually this is random, but some of my friends who were complaining about Baby Yoda eating the eggs and stuff, and I'm just like, babies put everything in their mouth.
Right, that's what they do.
That's what babies do. It's not malicious. It's just babies. Babies
Right.
eat everything, and you have to actively get them to not put things in their mouth, and so
Yeah, that.
but
And I haven't yet to watch those. I'm still so behind
oh,
on the
sorry,
Mandalorian. No, no,
spoiler
no.
alert.
You're fine because just as you said, with the people that we talk to, I've heard nonstop about it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
It's just a baby. It's a baby. What's
right.
wrong with you? But it was kind of nice also in this movie to have like an actual nice realtor because usually realtors are there's dubious association with they seem to always especially real estate investors because they want to turn whatever it is the beloved town landmark into a
Yeah, flip that.
yeah they always want to turn it into condos. That's the big thing. And so I was just kind of, oh, she's nice, a nice realtor who's just trying to do her job. We find out they get the adoption, and that was so exciting. I was so happy for them. I teared up. I really
It was
did.
a nice touch. It was a
Yeah,
very nice touch, especially with where they're all sitting around the table when they get the call, and it was nice.
because I really believe in adoption, and I think that when it all works out, it's such a beautiful, selfless
Yeah.
thing that can happen, and especially if they'd had three fall through. Oh, that's brutal,
It,
brutal.
it's terrible. And
Yeah,
I can't even begin to imagine what that feels like when you're getting your hopes up and you're, setting yourself up for this life change that then you're told isn't going to occur, and you have to kind of reset and move forward.
yeah,
Um, they didn't go too deep into that, but it was just enough of an emotional pull that
hmm
I'm glad it was included.
yeah. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you should just do adoption," and they don't to couples with infertility, which you should never say things like that, please.
Right.
Because you don't know what it's like. But it's not that simple. It's an incredibly costly and incredibly difficult, sometimes emotionally exhausting experience. And so
Hmm.
it's a difficult experience, but when it works, it's so beautiful. So I really loved that. That was really wonderful. So he ends up Robert Buckley's character ends up going up to New York for this meeting with the Handsome Justice people. And normally this whole I've got to leave this meeting now to be with the kid at a soccer game or his recital or some sort of version of that. I'm not a fan of that trope. Usually it's very cringy to me, and most of the time I'm just like, just finish the meeting, finish your meeting, and then go. Like I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't, but I kind of liked it here. I'm not so I was just I was invested enough in the characters, I think, that it kind of worked for me. And I liked he says, I left as soon as I realized the life I wanted was here.
Yeah. That's a
And
great line.
mm-hmm. And so I don't know, how did you feel about that?
I'm with you. I mean, again, it's one of those tropes that you see coming a mile away, but I liked how they kind of set it up a little bit and gave it a little bit more meat with
Yeah.
when they started, they said, "I'm sorry for waiting," or something along those lines. They started later than expected. And even when he kind of got what he wanted, that was the other nice piece, right? It wasn't just sitting in a meeting, waiting to see and debating where they can go. Um,
Yeah.
it was pretty much like, hey, your show is not canceled yet, and we really want to make this work. Let's talk about ideas. So he didn't it was a little atypical in that sense, and I
Yeah,
enjoyed
like
that.
he still sort of finished the main part of the meeting. And
Hmm.
then this was just sort of the chatting kind of part and brainstorming kind of part. And also, I think that maybe part of the time is a lot of the times when they do this, it doesn't really feel like the event is job losing worthy,
Yeah,
right? You know, it's like they're gonna have a million recitals, they're gonna have a million soccer games, and and so for that, you know, it's not worth losing your job over. Whereas like this, to me, with this Christmas house, with them selling the house, with all the other things, with the adoption, it does feel more like a once in a lifetime thing that you would really regret if you missed it.
I agree. The stakes were so much higher. There was so much
Mm,
more involved, and they, I think they set that up rather well.
yeah. Yep. And then you have Treat Williams saying, I don't need this house or the routine. I just need us. And so that was very relieving. Like, oh, good.
And I'll also say, Rachel, I don't know how you feel about this because, of course, you watch more Hallmark films than I
Hmm.
do. I thought the writing was really well done in this
Hmm.
film. There's, of
I,
course, some
yeah.
of the funny kind of jokey, cringeworthy jokes that are made, um, but all in all, I thought it was really well written and put together.
Yeah. This writer, she only has one other credit. This is her first for Hallmark, Erin Rodman. And I think great first start. Way
Yeah.
to go, Erin. Very good. And so hopefully we'll see more of you because I think it was a really, really good first effort. I agree. And a lot of pieces to be balancing all at the same time. And,
Yep.
so she did a good job. And so then we find out that he is buying the house, or Buckley's buying the house. And it's just very exciting. And so that's kind of our happy ending to the movie. And we do our ranking, our ratings in this show, 1 to 5 crowns.
Okay.
So what would you give this? How many crowns would you give this film?
I would give it a 4. I would give it
Mm,
4 crowns.
yeah.
I did very much enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.25 crowns. Yeah, I forgot to tell you we can do points. But I really liked this film. I thought it was really good. And so if you're listening, let us know what you would give it and how you would rank it. So, all right. Well, then let's talk about Heart of the Holidays. They're going to be covering God Winks and the Angel Tree, with Casey and Jess are going to be covering that later on this week. So if you're wondering why aren't they talking about that, that's why. So there's just a lot of movies this week. So we kind
Whole
of
lot.
divided it up. So we are talking about Heart of the Holidays, which was on Monday, and this was definitely an acquisition, which are typically not as strong. It can be, like I loved Christmas Perfection on Lifetime, which was an acquisition. So it depends, but you can usually tell they don't have the same budget as a outright Hallmark film, and you can definitely tell that here. Directed by Corey Sevier, who's the lead, and it stars him and Vanessa Lenguis. Sorry if I say your name wrong, Vanessa, but you are new to Hallmark, so that was fun to see you. She is also in Glee. I think was her most famous role previous to this, and then it has. I really thought that I thought that actually the supporting cast was pretty strong in this, just in small roles.
Mhm.
I liked the woman who played Marina. She's only in a couple scenes, but I really liked her. And there was a side of me that was like, I wish the movie was about her. She's more interesting and she's so cute.
I would
But
agree.
yeah. And this movie is about after her life in New York unexpectedly falls apart, powerhouse stockbroker Sam Wallace returns to her small town for the holidays and reconnects with her high school sweetheart, who helps reignite her humanitarian spirit just in time to help their community on Christmas. And so, what was your overall thoughts about this movie?
I struggled with this one. I did not enjoy this film,
Mm,
for a variety of reasons,
yeah.
but I think first and foremost, I did not find the leads very likable. and
Yeah.
that was a struggle for me from beginning to end.
Yeah, it I it was okay for me. Such a softie this year. But I also agree. I wasn't feeling the chemistry between them very much. And there were definitely problems, especially at the beginning with her likability. And it was just all extremely generic.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about this movie has been done 1,000 times before and been done better. And so that's hard. Not that I mind a formula film, but when there's just nothing to really kind of set it apart, why would I watch this when I can just watch, like I mentioned earlier, Rocky Mountain Christmas? Like that's the exact same
Right.
story with a girl from New York City who comes back to her family home. And I mean, so there's just so many of those. And so that I think makes it challenging. And it didn't have a lot of times these kinds of movies will have a sort of a standout actor playing like something like Treat Williams in Rocky Mountain Christmas playing the grandfather or the grandmother or somebody like that. And there really wasn't anything quite on that level for this. I mean, I enjoyed, like I said, some of the supporting work, but yeah, it kind of, I feel like it needed something like that to give it a little more weight to it. I don't know, but it starts out she is this like shark investor who hasn't been home for a long time. She's dating this guy, and it starts out he gives her this necklace, and he like doesn't even stop to let her open it. He's like, I got to take this phone call, and we kind of joke on the podcast that cell phones are the thief of love. They always interrupt
See,
everything.
and that's where my problem started with this movie,
Uh,
right at the beginning, in the first 3 minutes.
yeah,
Um, she tells him to answer it ultimately, and I
yeah,
think that's where I was like,
because she's the woman of the city there.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I didn't necessarily buy the fact that she got so upset about him being the new boss. Because if
yeah.
she's at a place where she's just like, I don't need you to be present when I'm opening this necklace. If she's at that spot, then I don't know if I didn't really necessarily buy that she would be so upset that he had, I mean, so upset to quit, and that he wouldn't have told her about this. It seems highly
That was the
unlikely.
crazy that it all happened overnight like that, and he had no idea that this was actually happening. Does he not know where she works?
Yeah,
Um,
and when, especially if this is like a big deal, she's so excited, and she had literally just been telling him about how we're gonna invest in independent startups,
right.
and so the fact that he wouldn't have been like, yeah, I might be your new boss seems ridiculous, and she's just gonna show up at his office the next day.
That
And
part got me, and I have to say also that I didn't even realize she was a stockbroker until she was talking to him in the office. Because before that, I was thinking, is she like a high end publicist? Is she like, what is she doing here? I didn't pick up on it until then,
Mhm.
and then finally I thought, oh, okay. But yeah, to be able to walk away from a high end stockbroker job just like that must be pretty
Yeah,
nice.
and she had been there for 8 years. So she's been, and I guess at the beginning she was in this nonprofit, and then she slowly kind of descended. It's kind of funny because you can tell this was an acquisition because, we just had a Nashville Christmas Carol where they were so afraid to make Jesse Schramm's character an actual Scrooge character. Like literally the Cratchit character in that movie was begging to keep working for her. Like I've never seen a Christmas Carol. Like I still enjoyed it because again, I'm just am being softy this year. But uh, but it's a kind of, I sort of want to take this character in this movie and move her into Nashville Christmas Carol because I think
Right.
that she was ready to be like a Scrooge character. And again, that's how you can tell because Hallmark doesn't want their lead characters to be unlikable really
Yeah.
in almost any way. But sometimes you need that because that's how you show character growth
Yeah, exactly right.
and how they change, especially if you're going to do a Scrooge narrative. But But anyway, so she comes back and she's kind of like embarrassed, I guess, to tell people that she quit her job, which I mean, I love me a an epic quit. That's one of my favorite things in the whole world because I had my own epic quit back in 2007 and it is the best and I love it in shows and on movies. And so I kind of wish that she had made this sort of an empowering moment for her. Like she had stood up to this, like she didn't have anything to be embarrassed about as far as I'm concerned. She quit the job and she should be kind of empowered by that, proud of it, right?
I agree because even, I mean, spoiler down the road when people find out, it's played more as a like her not wanting to hurt anyone by like her mother by telling her instead of playing on the being embarrassed piece, which I could totally understand and totally get. You know, you work so hard and then whatever, but also it was her choice ultimately.
Yeah,
And
so it should be empowering because she didn't get
right.
fired. If I could see being embarrassed if you're fired, but she totally chose to leave this job. But nevertheless, she goes home to spend time with her mom, and her mom was pretty fun, I thought. She has a million activities that she wants her daughter to be involved
Right.
in.
Right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grab the hat, we're going.
And I can see that if truly you only had one, if you only had one daughter
Mhm.
and she hadn't been home in 8 years, I think they said something about her being home for New Year's or something. But if she hadn't been home for Christmas for 8 years, I can see why you'd be like, ah,
Yeah, but the plot hole in that was she said, "Get the hats; they're on the dresser in your bedroom,"
yeah.
and she was so surprised to see her. I'm like, "Come on!"
Well, yeah, that's true. And also the fact that the twinkle lights were lit in her room. I'm like,
Yeah,
is she maintaining this room for 8 years? I mean, yeah, that's
I
true.
didn't even realize that.
Yeah, like I think she'd turn those lights off, but I guess she just misses her daughter so much. And so they bring up this girl Marina who I thought was really cute and I liked that actress. I hope we can have her on the podcast because she seemed really fun and I hate love triangles. This where honestly, I was enjoying the Twilight books, and then when we got to Eclipse, where there's like it was going to be this was going to be a love triangle series, I was like, I'm done. I'm out of this. I hate love triangles
Oh
because
no!
I always end up wishing they picked the other person, and so then it's just frustrating. And so I'm like, ah, and so I'm not saying this happened here, but I was just like, oh, why do they have to do a love triangle? I mean, they at least with Marina, they at the end they say, oh, she's going to the party with a mechanic or whatever. So they try to kind of give her a happy ending, and they didn't spend too much time on it. So I was glad about that because there was one this year called The Amazing Snow Romance, and oh, I hate that movie so much. It really leaned on their love triangle, and I don't know. I just hate that. It is not for me.
Yeah, you're exactly right here. They didn't focus on that much here. I felt like they really didn't give her much to work with.
Yeah.
She kind of popped in a few times. The other supporting character, was Tara Joshi, who
Hmm.
played Tessa, who was pregnant with her third child in the
She was
film.
fun. I
I
liked
liked her.
her.
Every time that they were talking, when she was talking with the main
Yeah.
character, I was like, okay, now less about you, more about Tessa. I want to know what's going on.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, I want the movie to be about the pregnant lady. She seems hilarious and really
Right.
fun. Or about Marina. And I agree with you about that. And I I think that I was expecting them to have the moment where it's like, oh, I thought you were with Marina, but in her for her to get jealous, but they didn't really do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't
Never
really do it.
happened, nor did anyone really question the fact that, like, except for the mother, who knew that Sam, the main character, had a partner back
Yeah,
in New York City at least. No one ever questioned, have you talked to
yeah,
him? Where's he at? What's he doing? What's going on?
yeah. And evidently, every single thing has to be done at Noah. I think it is Noah's restaurant. Everything
Right.
in town, and
Right.
even so, they have the food bank, and evidently they don't have any. any ovens or anything like that at the food bank, and or any other place. They got to do it there, so they have all the times for them to meet up, and they have the whole scene with them moving the gingerbread house. And I always think it's funny in these movies when they act like people are actually going to eat the gingerbread house, especially one like that that's like really big and formal. And like that kind of gingerbread is not good.
No, no.
No. They have to make it, they
It,
have to cook it so it's really hard. And those kinds of gingerbread are a pain in the neck to make because when you bake cookies, they misshapen. They
yeah.
don't stay perfect, and so it's really hard
It's
to
like those
make.
really wild wedding cakes that are made and they don't taste great because they're just
No.
basic cakes, you
Yeah, it's
know?
like a lot of fondant and a lot of,
Exactly
yeah.
right.
Yeah, agreed. And but they did have the scene where they're carrying it and they almost drop it, and they sort of look into each other's
Yeah.
eyes like, ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually where I really started disliking, well, more Noah, the Corey Seaver's character.
Hmm.
Um, I just quite honestly thought he was being a jerk when, Sam was trying to talk with him. It was really frustrating. I know that they were trying to show that he was hurt in the past and really
Uh-huh.
kind of distant and wanted to keep her at a distance. But
Yeah, he's
ultimately,
bitter because she left without telling him,
yeah,
which is pretty rude, especially in this day and age when you literally can just send a text or like to just leave,
yeah,
is pretty rude. And I always get frustrated with those plot lines because when people do that, they're robbing the other person of their agency. They're
mhm,
making the decision for them instead of saying, well, maybe he would go to New York. Who knows? Like he should
yeah,
be involved in the choice, right?
yeah.
Instead of just leaving. But you see that all the time in these films. So she ends up getting offered this like really plush job working for this fundraising company, working for managing the fundraising for this company in the city. But she decides that, oh, I'm going to move back home, and she's going to work basically for the lady who runs the food bank,
Mhm.
kind of a thing.
Yeah, and what we find out after this, and I'm stealing your thunder here a little bit, but to make the point, her boyfriend from New York shows up.
Hmm.
He is way more likable than Noah is. Way more.
Yeah.
I mean, he like was really trying to make it work, and I thought really the only thing I didn't like was that they did rob her of her empowerment there by acting as though he had to give her the opportunities. He
Hmm.
helped her get that interview. He did this, he did that, whereas she was
Yeah.
the one that built herself up for 8 years. That frustrated me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she she had kind of, oh, I don't know. It was weird because I don't know how I say it. Like she seemed to also be kind of enabling him in that behavior a little bit
Mhm.
too,
It's true.
in their relationship at the beginning of the film, and she finally breaks it up with him. And I agree. I thought that like he's one of those bad men of business that is only bad because we're told he's bad, like in the script wants him to be bad. Like in his actual actions, what did he do that was so bad? I mean,
Right.
aside from not telling her that he was going to be her boss, that was just stupid. But they were on the same page, they were both in the same spot, so it's like natural for him to assume that she's going to be fine with that.
Well, I
And
remember the movie started with her missing the date and him showing up with food.
right. Oh, that's true. And he says, I didn't you get all of my texts and all of my calls and messages and everything like that. So it's not like he's just totally blown her off. Like he literally has found her a job and and or at least, used his connections to try to help her, and
Yeah.
because he thinks that she's unhappy. And so yeah, it's an interesting thing in these Hallmark movies when you have to kind of step back and be like, is this person really a bad man of business, or are
Right.
they just trying to convince us that he's a bad man of business?
In
But
a strange
nevertheless.
way, in a strange way, history repeats itself in this film with the fact that how she treated Noah in the past with just leaving
Hmm.
without
That's
talking to
true.
him,
That's a
and
good
how
point.
she treats Will.
Yeah. And so she tells Noah that she's staying and that she is going to buy a house and it's going to be a pretty amazing house and that she's going to work for the food bank lady. And it sounded like a pretty, I don't know where this is supposedly taking place. I can't remember. But I don't know, she's affording such a fancy house on a fundraiser salary. It's not,
Right.
I guess maybe she saved her money. Who knows? But anyway, she's gonna buy this house and they're going to assumedly move in together and they kiss and it's very exciting. And they did have a name drop of the movie in the movie, which is you don't always see, where they're talking about the heart of the holidays, which I thought was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I this movie wasn't the best. It was tolerable, but definitely one of the weaker of this season for Hallmark, in my opinion. I'm gonna give it a 2.75 crowns. Yeah.
So because I like even numbers, I'm gonna give it a 2.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
did you realize too that maybe it's just because we all watched them so close together because they were
Uh-huh.
back to back days, but they kind of follow similar trajectories in a way where
Yeah.
it's coming together to work on something. So in a Christmas house, it's the Christmas
Right.
house. In Heart of the Holidays, it's the food pantry. There's
Yeah.
a job interview or a job to go,
Yeah.
maybe get back, and then you make the
When
other
coming
choice.
from the city and the
Yeah.
city is evil, I always joke that you're only a good person in the city if you are a window designer or you were running a parade. That's the only allowable careers.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So she was up there in the city and she came back and she was saved from the
Yeah.
yeah, no, it is very, very, very formulaic. But yeah, so there we go. That is Heart of the Holidays. Let us know what you think of it. And where can people follow you if they want to follow you on social media or your other content?
Sure. Guyatthemovies.com will kind of give you the map of where you can find me, but the main places will be guyatthemovies.com for news, Guy at the Movies on Instagram for daily reviews, as well as Guy at the Movies 1 on Twitter. Someone already had Guy at the Movies when I started. So
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate those and they help people to find the podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we also have our Patreon group, which has so many fun opportunities to watch alongs with Hallmark talent and other fun stuff. We have our watch along for December with we're watching A Heavenly Christmas with screenwriter Greg McBride, and he's delightful. So you're going to want to be in on that. And then it's only $2 a month to join. So please check that out. In all the information is in the description. We also have our merch store, which is having huge sales this week. So you can get all of your Hallmark inspired merch and also your festive holiday inspired merch. Check that out. You'll love it. And we would certainly be so appreciative. So thanks so much, Joe, for coming on. This was a lot of fun. And I hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
thank you.
Bye,
You as well. Thanks for
everyone.
having me.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas.